This hour, former National Signals Bureau Director General Kwabena Eduboahin says he spent some 8.3 million Ghana cedis on communication equipment for an opposition party and nearly 1 million cedis in payments to members of parliament for passing key security laws. Also on our desk, President John Mahama reiterates his commitment to fulfilling pledges contained in his 120-day social contract, affirming that his administration is resolutely focused on implementing concrete reforms with both speed and integrity.
Political matters of public interest. This war against corruption continues unabated.
Also, on breaking the fire cycle, we return to the Takra market where survivors battle neglect and a second disaster looming.
3 years ago, up to now, we have not been on our feet. Things are not the same anymore. Everything has spoiled. So many of us have died, and I don't know what to say again.
These plus business updates on our desk. Please stay for details. We'll be right back. In our first story, President John Mahamas has reiterated his commitment to fulfilling the pledges contained in his 120-day social contract, affirming his administration is resolutely focused on implementing concrete reforms with both speed and integrity. From restructuring government to battling illegal mining, President Mahamas said his administration was not in office for ceremony but for serious business. The president pointed to achievements such as forming a lean government, enforcing a strict code of conduct for public officials, and removing burdensome taxes that had stifled individuals and businesses.
We've significantly exceeded our 120-day promises regarding overall tax reform by enacting other critical bills such as the Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill, the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the removal of VAT on motor vehicles, the Public Financial Management Bill, the Growth and Sustainability Levy Act, the Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Bill, the Gold Board Bill, the Energy Sector Levy Bill, and the Petroleum Revenue Amendment Bill. This swift legislative action underscores our commitment to providing relief and creating a more favorable economic environment. Reviewing taxes on industrial and agricultural imports. We're committed to reviewing taxes and levies on vehicles and equipment imported for industrial and agricultural purposes within our first 90 days. My government has initiated the crucial review process. The results of this comprehensive review will guide policy decisions and be incorporated into the 2025 mid-year budget review and subsequently the 2026 budget, ensuring that we support these vital sectors effectively. Commencing the 24-hour economy policy. One of our signature policies for job creation and economic transformation is the 24-hour economy policy. We promise to commence drafting the needed legal amendments and prepare for its implementation within the first 120 days. The program is designed to drive structural transformation across our economy, built on pillars aimed at revamping key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. The program rollout has commenced in earnest. The 24-hour Secretariat is collaborating with the Development Bank of Ghana and the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund to operationalize financing pillars for this program. Cabinet has approved amendments to the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act and the Labour Act to include specific clauses regarding 24-hour operations. These amendments aim to enhance social protection, create an enabling environment for the 24-hour economy policy, and promote conducive business and labor relations. Already, several businesses are lining up to sign on to this policy. Some tangible actions have also been taken the Ghana Investment Promotion Center has launched 24-hour premium services to eliminate processing delays for investors. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has launched a 24-hour passport service with the passport application headquarters operating 24/7. The DVLA used a 24-hour service to clear a long-standing 18 months backlog of licenses and will soon commission a new 24-hour service office at Adenta in Accra. The Youth Employment Agency is set to launch the Graduates in Corporate Support GRICS program, which will attach graduates to firms operating 24 hours a day. This program is targeting 20,000 graduates. The YEA is also partnering with security agencies, the fire, police, immigration services, to provide security for 24-hour firms and is working towards training and deploying 23,000 recruits for this purpose. Recognizing the need for robust security, the police service is establishing a 24-hour police unit to improve 9 patrols and utilize technology supported by nationwide sensitization. The Minister of Energy and Green Transition is engaging the PURC to set up smart metering with a time of use tariff, charging a lesser tariff during the off-peak hours, a direct incentive for enterprises on the 24-hour economy policy. The Minister of Finance and Presidential Advisor on the 24-hour economy policy is finalizing a list of incentives for businesses to sign up for the initiative. The Ghana Publishing Company Limited has also begun 24-hour printing operations. In fulfillment of the 120-day commitment, we're pursuing new avenues of job creation, expanding employment opportunities, particularly for young graduates, and empowering the private sector as a key driver of sustainable job creation.
In studio with me is Prince Derek Ajay, former Deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority Youth Enterprise Support Office of the President. We'll discuss the social contract with him. You're welcome to our desk this morning. Glad to have you here, though. The President said he's fulfilled all the promises he made in that 120-day social contract, which ended yesterday. Why is it that the COVID-19 levy is still on? And still we haven't seen the LI 2462 repealed. That hasn't been done, has it?
Well, governance is more processes than just events. And in terms of the social contract, I would want to give the president high marks, though I won't put percentages on it for now. I think the good people of Ghana are out there, the verdict is out there. Even the minority are giving him high marks.
That's what you said?
Yes.
Did you hear them say that?
Well, they mistakenly gave him 48 when they meant 84, but that's fine.
Well, that's what you are saying. But yes. I'm curious because the government was specific. The president said we're going to repeal LI 2462. Later we heard we're going to review it or amend it. But the promise was to repeal. That hasn't been done. Also, the COVID-19 levy was supposed to be scrapped. That hasn't been done. Why are those still in there?
Well, I believe you heard the president, specifically on the COVID-19, which everybody expects to be, as it were, scrapped with the others. All the others had been scrapped, that which he promised, except COVID-19.
And even the VAT too, there's still issues ongoing.
Well, I think that, let's be fair, we have an IMF program in place. And there are things that are tied to the IMF program. COVID-19 is one of them. And processes are underway to have it removed completely. I'm sure there will be a next budget reading and you would come to realize that the president has kept that promise, save the fact that we have to keep our promises with the IMF as well. But on the other one, that's the LI 2462, that gives the president or a president the right to allow for mining in the forest reserves and has been abused to include also water bodies. The steps have been taken, but I would want us to not start looking at things as to whether the president has done this or hasn't done this. How did it come into being is a starting point. Why should even such a law be contemplated? It is an
But
aberration.
if you go on that tangent, it's another conversation.
Yeah, I know.
The president knew how it came into being, but promised that it will be repealed. And that is what we have taken from him. And so if at this point, after his 120-day social contract, that hasn't been repealed, then we ask why.
Yes.
You haven't heeded to your own promise.
No, he's heeding to the promise. And I just wanted us to start from where it started from. You see, if you don't understand what the problem is, and then you assume that it's something that can just be taken away with a tick of a pen, then you're making a big mistake, all right? Recently, I mean, out of the 9 forests that had been taken over, all right, by galamseyers, and it wasn't just Ghanaian galamseyers. Because if you look at the 10,000 people who were flushed out of one settlement in one of the forest reserves by a combined force of the military and other security services, it included nationals from all over West Africa, Burkina, Togo, everywhere. It actually shows you the extent of the problem that is being confronted Ghanaians, or the security services, that is. And also the potential for that to destabilize even the country. You have people in the forests, people who could be dissidents of all kinds in there, doing all manner of crimes, prostitution, human trafficking, and all that. These people have been flashed out. Now, note that people expected the president, day one, to declare state of emergency. Day one, the president didn't even have ministers to start with. The government had not been formed. President has had 120 days, but most of his ministers have had much less. And then there are other agencies, there are boards. You know, government runs in a certain way. So if you take on a responsibility, you have to make sure that in fulfilling those promises, it doesn't become just an action that will bring further problems, all right? So, for example, the gold board that has been set up is all geared towards ensuring that you cut the bloodline, that's the money that they get from. Why do people mine or do galamsey? They are trying to get gold. But then they transmit or they transfer the gold into money. If you cut that, then you make it a disincentive for them to continue doing what they're doing. You are able to better manage and, as it were, monitor what is going on. So that's one. Two is that people have been laughing at the water guards. That's the people in the so-called yellow and whatever. I mean, they call them all sorts of derogatory names. And I think that that's not helpful. What Ghanaians as citizens, I think the media can do to help the government is to be supportive at the very least. These people, some people thought we're going to be going in there to fight with guns to remove the galamseyers. That is not their task. The Blue Water Guards are part of a comprehensive program that is ensure that our water bodies are kept safe beyond what the forest guards are doing with getting the forest. So there's going to be a lot of monitoring. There's going to be a lot of IT being deployed. The president had talked about AI and all that. We had a situation where drones were procured. We can't find them. But these technologies can be used effectively in ensuring that these things happen. And then the livelihood part also is very key, because if you get a situation where people are given alternative livelihoods, all right, or they are otherwise gainfully employed, then you can say that, okay, getting these people out of the forest would be getting them into the point where they can have alternatives. But if you bring them out and there are no employment opportunities out there, they will either go there or do other things, including crimes.
Prince, so are you telling me that you have to do all these things before that Airline will be repealed? Because you see, the president is not a novice. He's been in government before. Obviously, he knows how government runs, you know, and he knew all that before he came out to say, at the end of 120 days, this is what I'm going to do. Look, he scrapped taxes, the e-levy and betting winnings, taxes on betting winnings and all that. Those were also going to take processes, obviously. I mean, when you say I'm going to scrap this, and it was announced at the budget reading, this was done, but then subsequent processes that had to get it done was done. Why is the president delaying to get the Airline repealed? Within the 120-day social contract, he asked us to give him. I mean, we've given him his support by electing him into government in the first place for him to make those promises. And he was specific in a certain time frame. And so at the end, is it not only normal or natural that Ghanaians, you know, get him to be accountable to those promises?
Oh, yes, I agree with you in the main. And I think that not only has the president been in office as president before, he's been vice president, he's been minister, he's been even been an assemblyman. He understands the governance, structures from, the bottom
from the very basics.
Up. Yeah. So I agree with you. Now, number two is that he has an overwhelming majority in Parliament, and therefore it should be easy for him to push things through. All right? Now, Parliament is currently on recess. The expectation is that Parliament will resume, that bills that have been put together, bills that are formulated not by the president himself, but by his ministers, okay, and his cabinet. And like I said, his ministers and cabinet is not 120 days old. President was sworn in on the 7th of January, and so he is 120 days old. His ministers, however, within 14 days, as he promised, he had his cabinet in place, including the ministers for environment, lands, and so on. And these have put in place documents, one of which was the repeal. One was revocation. But like I said, these are being put in place systematically in tandem with other policies that the government is implementing.
Right.
So we don't have a situation where we have a shock in the system. Assuming, and let's just be fair, assuming the president day one declared a state of emergency, okay? He didn't even have a defense minister. He didn't have any ministers, and said military. And he's the commander-in-chief, yes? So he says military, go in there, do whatever. Do you know what would have happened? Can you imagine just that one forest with 10,000? Now, assuming all those people were arrested, okay, and were sent to the courts, can the courts handle these things? Then there's the issue of deportations and so on that people have criticized. I agree that it would be fair that all who are arrested are prosecuted. But if you look at the reality, is it possible? How many of the 10,000, for example, could be prosecuted, and for over what period? Don't forget that we have thousands more of people who have stolen, plundered the wealth of this country, who also have to go through the same processes. The courts will be choked. And I think that you will agree with me that the public tribunals should be brought into being, special courts should be established to allow for deplogging.
That is an issue for
and that is some of the things.
Great. I'm still on Galamsey. I'll come back to you, but later today from 6 p.m., Joy News will host a national dialogue on repealing the Airline 4.2, and I've been joined by Glenn Asumi, who is Director of Operations at NDF. Glenn, I'm grateful for your time on our desk. What should we expect on this conversation? I mean, it's very, very debatable. The government says that they're in the process of getting it out, but a major militant against this is because Parliament is on recess, and so they can't get the bill through now. But, I mean, this evening, what are you going to discuss?
Yeah, so thank you. I want us to take it from where we have come from. So, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of discussions on stopping Galamsey, but we need to put it in context. So we know the Galamsey that we've been used to, 50, maybe even 100 years, where people go with pickaxes and then shovels, to try and get some soil from some rivers, or get some rocks. Sometimes they find their way into the concessions of the big mining companies, and then they bring it to their communities. If you go to Takra, there's a community called Akon. You hear them pounding with pestles and metal mortars. That kind of Galamsey, that's what we knew. But when we say stop Galamsey, or the new, this new fight against Galamsey, these are not really illegal people per se. These are people who have been permitted, to mine. But the only challenge we've had is how the mining has been. So these are small-scale miners who work not only with pickaxes and shovels, but with machines, big excavators. And this is where all the attention has been. Now, come to the issue around the Airline. So we cannot pretend that there's not been any mining in our forest. There's been mining, maybe more than 100 years. We've had some form of mining in our forest. It has been on a very small scale. We have some legal companies that are mining in some of our forests. The Newmont is one of them, mining in some forests in the Ahafo region. But what has happened, what we have seen in the last, so we did an assessment. We commissioned some researchers to do remote sensing to tell us how the impact of mining on our forest resources, and realized that there has been a gradual increase, especially between 2020, 2021. We saw a big jump, and that big jump is a result of the the gold prices.
Right.
You know, so we realized it matched the gold price. So the higher the price of gold went, and the more people went into the forest, whether legally or illegally. Now, how have we operated? Where have we come from? We have worked with what we refer to as guidelines, and this is what EPA was using to manage the companies in the forest resources. Now, these guidelines sort of kept the status quo. You know, it got a system together. Then there was, you know, it was just a guideline, it didn't have any legal backing per se, even though the EPA was authorized to work with that guideline to make sure that sanity prevailed. Then we got the LI, which was supposed to give that guideline legal backing. But this is what happened. In the process of changing it from the guidelines to the law, what we realized was that certain things that kept the sanity, you know, that kept the system together, were either deliberately removed or whether by force or was deliberate, nobody knows. So for instance, we said that of all the forests that we have in Ghana, we only allow 2% of production areas to be mined. And production areas are usually places where you know, the government would allow for mining. For timber.
Right.
Timber is this is just 2%. So if this is just a certain percentage of the forest, usually it can be 50%, it can be 60%, it can even be 70%. But out of that, we said we permit only 2% to be mined. When this law was made, that 2%, you know, limit was removed, and then other things were introduced, which now gave, for instance, the president the power to allocate any forest at all. And in Ghana, if you look at what we've done over the years, there are discussions around climate change. Because we have some tropical forests. Not all countries have that tropical forest. So because of our forests, we are able to say as a country that, for instance, we are going to commit our forests to make sure that there will be no degradation, no deforestation. And that will be our contribution to the fight against global warming, against climate change. But what has happened is that if you now permit the president alone to be able to give any place that he or she wants, you know, for mining, what are we doing?
Right.
So this, as we call it, we say that it has sort of, it is going to shock everything that we have done as far as forest management is concerned, climate change efforts are concerned, everything. It was just going to bring everything to ground zero. So this is why we say this is a bad law. If you permit me to make a final point on this one. Now, before this law was, you know, we had a few companies, you know, the big companies do one or two things in the forest. Now, as soon as this law was passed, we saw all sorts of people, and let me give you one major forest which will surprise you. I mean, we were going to mine everything, including our own Kakum National Park. Our own Kakum National Park was going to be mined. And I also have other information which meant that more or less almost every forest reserve in Ghana was going to be mined. And we know what the issue is. This is where we find our rivers, the forests. In fact, the forest supports the whole of the forestry commission and the timber industry and all of that. If we allow this thing to go, what it means is that in a matter of 5-10 years, all of that industry will be gone. So we are creating jobs, we are finding money, and yet we are also degrading so many jobs and so much. So this is the reason why not just us, but all other stakeholders are concerned. We have our water bodies. This is where we have the sources of almost all our water bodies. If we touch them, I don't know, then that statement that people make that we start importing water.
Right.
We definitely. So this is why we are concerned.
And Glenn Asumi is Director of Operations of Nature and Development Foundation. He will be joined by other panelists this evening for our dialogue on repealing Airline 2462, uniting voices to protect Ghana's forest and water bodies. Thank you so much, Glenn, and definitely make a date this evening with our panelists. Well, I still have in the studio with me Prince, and just before I let you off, Prince, has government tracked these promises that they say they fulfill to know the impact it's had directly on Ghanaians? Right.
Colleague Erastus has been doing a fine job, and I think you would agree that government did a very fine job with him being put on the fact-finding team of the Minister for Lands, Forestry and Mineral Resources. And so he's able to now go with the aid of military, etc., to go and do the fact-finding, as opposed to previously where he goes and under fire, military are rather helping the Galamseyers. We come 360 degrees. So let's give some credit where it's due. And I think that with the tracking of the excavators, as opposed to selling excavators, now putting all excavators on the registry and being tracked is another sure way that the government is going to ensure that all these ban and so on happen. Now, to the tracking of the promises. I'm sure without tracking them, the president couldn't have given himself the percentage that he gave himself. Some people didn't look at the keywords like initiate, commence, provide seed money. These are keywords. A promise is a promise. The wording of the promise is also very important. So if I promise to provide seed money for women's banking and I put about 51 million as seed money, I fulfill the promise. Some people want to see a building there with Women's World Banking on it before they know that, oh, the promise has been fulfilled. So there are little things that are but the devil is in the detail.
So just to emphasize on that, or the concerns that people are raising on that particular promise, is it that government has just earmarked the seed money? Now, people are not able to access it. They need it. So when then is the bank going to start operating for people to be able to access them? And that's how come they'll be able to feel that the promise has been fulfilled in their lives. That hasn't been done. You
see, a team has been put in place to ensure that this is actualized, and the team is working. Even yesterday, I'm sure you had a new team has been put in place for a national airline. They also include very seasoned people, and they are going to actualize these.
Has the same been done for the bank? No.
For the what?
For the bank.
Same has been done.
The board has been set up?
You're in the media, you should be telling the public. Yes, it has been.
It has been set up. So these ones have been set up, seed money done, but the bank hasn't started operating. They haven't received money yet. Do you know when that will start?
When appropriations are made for any budget, it's assumed that the money is available. And so, yes, it is. Now, I mean, I'm particularly very excited about a number of sectors, including the youth sector. I mean, I've been in charge of the youth sector for 8 years under President Mills and Mahama. And then I was part of the people who drafted the policy. So I can see its implementation being done. And I'm super excited because one of the key things was to have a standalone youth ministry. Now we have it for youth empowerment and so on. It allows for the aggregation of all the policy objectives in one place, one-stop shopping, and I can see the Jumara and other policies coming in place. In fact, the Jumara is more of an improved version of what we started with the Youth Enterprise Support at the Office of the President in 2014, which name was changed to National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan under the NPP. I think that this president is focused on ensuring that he does not only deliver, but he impacts and leaves a legacy for Ghana. And I think that we should be excited. The oral, for me, is the ultimate. Corruption starts not only with former appointees or ends with them. Yes, we do know that the scandals under the President Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration was just out of this world. And so there must be prosecutions to serve as a deterrent. But the code of conduct for his ministers and appointees and the expansion of the frontiers of the financial management, laws to not just, home in on the finance minister if he exceeds a certain threshold, but to attack every minister, every appointee, and even bring it down to the grassroots level is a sure way of ensuring that we keep track of the pests and ensure that nobody plunders it, so there'll be enough to go around for the implementation of all the other things. Note that this president did not inherit a gold mine. He has inherited poverty. Because of the looting and plundering. Just
before I let you off, I just need a yes or no answer on this question. I'm veering off a little bit. The asset declaration of government appointees, the deadline was yesterday, Wednesday. Have they declared the assets now? Do you know?
Have they?
Yes. Those who haven't declared, have they declared now?
Do you know those who have not declared?
Have they declared now? I just need a yes or no answer.
My assumption is that they would have. And so my answer will be a yes. And the president did indicate that if the answer is a no for anyone, the president is automatically out. So we take the president on his word. And this president is one who is trustworthy, one who delivers on his promises, one who does not just talk for the fun of it, but one has a legacy to deliver. And I'm sure Ghanaians should support him all the way so we can have a better situation going forward.
Thank you so much, Prince. It's been exciting to have you on our desk this morning. We're grateful for the updates.
Well, thank you too, and we look forward to a better Ghana.
Indeed, we do. Away from that, a memorandum from former National Signals Bureau Director General Kwabena Edubwine has revealed staggering expenditures on the national security and intelligence operations. This, he says, included some 8.3 million Ghana cedis for communications equipment for an opposition party and nearly 1 million Ghana cedis in payments to members of parliament for passing key laws. Now, ranking member on Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee, Reverend John Fojo, is asking for a probe into this, and he joins us on our desk. Let's speak to him. We'll also have on the line lawyer Martin Pibble with us, and he's also going to share his views on this particular happening. I have Martin with me right now. Martin, what do you make of these revelations made by Mr. Boahin, and what do you think will change in the investigation or the case that's before court? Unmute and speak to us, Martin.
Okay, so I say that the revelations are an eye-opener, okay, and enlightening, because we've been enlightened, you know. In the previous administration, we always felt there was some misuse of our funds, okay, for lack of a better word, but we had no evidence, and so with this particular kind of revelation, we are getting closer. We are not quite there yet, but we are a bit closer to, you know, finding exactly how the state uses and misuses our resources. Okay? So I call this revelation God sent, because it's making us wiser as a people. I mean, all the things we've been saying that, hey, politicians don't use our money well. Politicians don't use our money well. The public purse is not being guarded well, all right? The public purse itself is being stolen. It's something that this revelation has come to reinforce. So we should be happy for it. I mean, comparatively, you remember in the US, when Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning, when they did the WikiLeaks, okay, and other countries all over the world, right? A lot of countries. You see the revelations of national security secrets, etc. It brought similar results where it opened the eyes of the American people to how government was misusing their money, etc. So this should be maybe our mini WikiLeaks. So we should be happy.
But Martin, do you think this in any way is going to change the dynamics of the case in court? I mean, these revelations being made by the NSB, former NSB boss.
It's early days yet, okay? Early days yet, because, you know, Dr. Ayine is making a different case in court. He says that he's seen the transfers from the NSB account to Eduwahin's private NSB account, and then from that place to Mayfair Properties. Let's be very clear. From the Eduwahin private account to the Mayfair Properties, etc. So the case Ayine is making, I see, is quite different from what Eduwahin is answering here. Nonetheless, as I said, as a nation, we should be very grateful to Eduwahin for their revelations, because now we can push harder. You know, we've always said that, look, let's not throw our destinies into the hands of politicians. No, they are not angels. Politicians alone can't build this nation. They are our classmates, our brothers, our sisters, our sons and daughters. So we always need to remember that and keep them in check. Right? So I don't, for now, based on the case Dr. Ayine is building, I don't see Eduwahin's answers answering that. Because to be very specific, to repeat, Ayine has been clear that, look, you see paper trail, money for the NSB goes into Eduwahin's private NSB account. I know Bright Simmons is raised even a question that Registrar General has to answer, or if it's like Registrar of Companies, how they could create that private company for Eduwahin and his wife. that looks very much like the official NSB account, right? So from that private NSB account, he says money goes to Mayfair Properties and all the other things that Dr. Ayene is mentioned. So it's incredible. I mean, I don't, and we all know Dr. Ayene. Ayene is quite a serious man. So for now, I would say that these revelations are not an answer to Ayene's probe or Ayene's case.
Right. So, Martin, the man is making allegations that some over 8 million cedis went to the opposition at the time, now in government. The president has also declared, forcefully, that he's not going to countenance corruption in his government, or, where there's even going to be an oral committee who is, looking into some of these things, and later the AG himself prosecuting some of these cases if found, culpable. So in this case, do you think that there's the scope of investigation, as is being called by Revenue Team Forger, should be expanded to these elements that he's raised at this point in time?
Sure. Why not? You see, you're talking about, in theory, as I've mentioned, state secrets that we will get to probe and to learn how our money is being used in secret. It will be good for us. So if Team Forger can push more, just making a call on a news bulletin like this doesn't appear as one that will be forceful enough to get the president to do that kind of probe. So Team Forger should be thinking of ratcheting up the call. Yeah, he has to ratchet up the call. It doesn't appear that this is sufficient.
But does he even have to ratchet up the call? I mean, this is a case that the AG is already probing and taking it to court. Can the AG do more than that? I mean, this is in the, in his backyard anyway.
Let me see. I think I need, but let's go back a bit. Let me get it. So Team Forger is saying that, to be clear, because I haven't read the story, what he's saying is that he's asking that the revelations made by Dubois should also be investigated by the Attorney General. That's a call.
To be investigated, he doesn't specifically name Attorney General.
Okay. All right, let's go back a bit and see, so that I don't answer a question that I haven't reflected on well. I thought he was asking for a commission of inquiry. So that's the way I understood it. But now let's come back a bit. Let's take some of the items. That will make a better, it will help us understand. So let's say, everybody says money was paid to opposition parties to do, what do you call it?
Even MPs to pass certain security laws.
Okay, so maybe, yes. So all of that, I think a lot of them sound in corruption. Yes, if you say you're paying MPs money to pass a law, it sounds more in corruption. And so that would look like OSP. If you pay money to opposition parties to help them monitor elections, etc., what were you doing? Paying them off? Is it using public office for private gain? So you should come with more details. You see it? Yes, then it will be clearer. It will be clearer so that I'll know who should go. Because as I said, I understood it as a commission of inquiry. That one is general, all round. So that one, yes. But now, if you say go to Ayene, it's not too clear to me that all of that can go to Dr. Ayene, the Attorney General. Some of them, from what I'm saying, the ones that it says pay to MPs, etc., that's sounding in corruption because MPs are paid to pass laws. And you know that particular thing, look, it's not the first time. That particular thing, paying 900 and something thousand to the MPs to pass the Securities and Intelligence Agencies Act, the new one. It's not new. Look, lots of government agencies, they always pay. It's become standardized. They always pay. And we've had an interview, a debate with Joe Wise, with Samson Ladiayenene, where Joe Wise said, yes, they receive those monies.
Right.
They think it's facilitation of their work. So you say, so that one deserves a probe. So that we'll go into it. This is not, Eduwani is not the first to reveal that MPs are paid money to pass laws. They've standardized it. Look, I can tell you that about 10 years ago, a friend of mine, a lawyer, when he went to the Committee of Parliament, this is what they said. They said, hey, yeah, man, we hope you've brought weight to put on your papers. Otherwise, the wind will blow your papers away. You know what the weight is? It's money. You're coming to the Committee of Parliament, you haven't brought money, then they can't see your work. It's been there. Look, from the late 90s, we started hearing MPs are paid money to pass budgets, etc. from 98 onwards.
Right.
Okay, so that one deserves a commission of inquiry first, so that we see the length of the toad.
All right. Thank you so much, Martin Pibble. We're always grateful for making time here on our decks. Thank you. Well, moving on in other stories, 3 years ago, fire reduced Takra's market to rubble, scarring lives and swallowing livelihoods. But while the flames are gone, the danger is not. In breaking the fire cycle series, Natalia Kwanzaa returns to ground zero, where survivors battle neglect and a second disaster looming to happen.
Personnel from the Ghana Fire Service over 5 hours to fight the fire. The cause of the fire is not known. The Western Regional Minister, who's also acting as the MCE for 2nd D Takra Metropolitan Assembly, Kwabena Ochre-Dakumensa, in an interview said the Assembly, as a matter of urgency, would ensure the reconstruction of the affected stalls within this week.
3 years ago, a raging inferno tore through the Takra makeshift markets, consuming goods, livelihoods, and hope. The fire service struggled for 5 long hours to contain the flames, not because they weren't ready, but because they couldn't reach the fire on time.
This is someone's stall, and the one next to it also belongs to someone else. These 2 people are buying things from those shops, and I'm trying to pass by, but there's no space. With this road, how are we supposed to escape in case of an emergency? They are buying, and I am also trying to pass through.
Some parts are so tight, 3 people can barely pass at a time. It's a market that's regrown on fragile grounds.
There are 6 of us standing here. If a fire breaks out, where would the fire truck pass? There is no space for any vehicle to come through if there is an emergency, and that could lead to casualties. Up till now, they haven't fulfilled the promises they made. We are still in the same condition. If a fire starts again, the fire service will struggle to get in here. Another thing is that the small road that was meant for the fire service so that they fill their water tank when it runs out has been used to build stores. So at this point, there is no path for the fire service to access the area in case of an emergency. This place was burned before, and even now, it hasn't been properly rebuilt. They just put up plywood here.
Fire service bempo na se one tank one car no mususa wo benye baby what in su kwapo adan stores sido we twa me why stores osisido yer kase nti asat yer kase de biara ni wa sahare so a ka botum wa afa wa bahade.
After the fire, promises followed. The then regional minister Kwabena Ochre-Dakumensa assured traders of a new proper stores.
We want to start reconstruction this week. And we are catching experts now, what's why experts in and one for knowledge of grant and what to do immediately.
You're still watching the News Desk with me, Mami Sinyamita Thompson. We'll take a break. We'll return with more news.
Now.
Welcome back to Business here on Newsdesk. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. The Minister of Transport, Joseph Bukari Nikpe, has charged a 10-member task force mandated to oversee the establishment of a new national airline to develop an operational framework aimed at ensuring its sustainability. The task force, which is chaired by a former managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, Charles Asare, was charged to ensure Ghana remains competitive in the aviation industry. My colleague Isaac Atasai Nyako has more from the inauguration.
Among other things, the task force is expected to finalize an economic model and operational architecture for a national airline. It will also seek potential strategic and technical partners to ensure the airline's sustainability. These efforts by President John Mahamas follows the collapse of the Ghana International Airlines in 2010 after it succeeded the defunct Ghana Airways, which had been in operation between 1958 to 2004. Speaking at the inauguration, Minister for Transport Joseph Nikpe said he expects the task force to ensure the establishment of a competitive airline.
The President, on behalf of the people, have entrusted them with this responsibility of working to establish the national airline. It is going to be our pride. It is going to be our hope. It is going to take advantage of the facilities we have worked to create over the years. And so they will look at how we will work to function effectively. Already there are other industry players in the aviation sector, and we are going to compete with them. And I believe in them, and I know that the model they will come out with will be good enough to compete in the aviation industry.
The minister, who is also the member of parliament for Saboba constituency, stressed that he will do all it takes to ensure the effective running of the airline when it is established.
That is our past, and we are prepared to do things differently. And we want to engage in this enterprise and engage in it very well with all the business sense that we will deploy. It will guide us in establishing and operating a functional national airline, not like it happened in the past. However, the past will be what will guide us. But we are going to consider all business models to use to establish this national airline.
The chair of the task force, Charles Asare, a former managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, stated his resolve to deliver an effective model for a national career.
The vision is very clear to us, the task ahead, quite defined, and I consider our job is to execute. Some of the members of the team I've worked with, and I can say confidently that we have the right set of skills and experience to deliver on his dream. It's not just his dream, and I think it's Ghana's dream.
The task force is chaired by a former managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, Charles Asare. Other members include T.A. Selby, an aviation expert, Joyce Bar Mukhtari, former Deputy Minister of Transport and Presidential Staffer, as well as 8 other persons with enormous experience in the aviation sector.
That's all for business here on Newsdesk. My name is Winston Taki. Mami, so it appears Ghana is likely to experience having our own national airline quite soon.
Well, I hope so. But how did your Arsenal team fare yesterday?
Arsenal, yeah. we always see the cup and decide not to take it.
Very unfortunate. Well, that's how we end this morning's news desk. We'll be back tomorrow for another edition. Thank you for watching.